In this video, I'm gonna share with you my decision-making process in simple terms so that you can immediately understand it and use it in your very next chess game. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. We are gonna play today as black. I'm gonna explain absolutely every single one of my thoughts throughout the game, and I'm gonna make sure that it's simple and understandable for you throughout the whole game. So I'm starting it with my favorite opening that I sincerely recommend you try one day, the fillet or defense for black. It starts with the move d6, and then you place the knight on f6, attacking this e4 pawn. And when they play knight c3, you play e5, because you always want to fight for the center. You never want to allow your opponent just to control it and do whatever he wants. Our opponent takes here on e5, which is somehow a concern to so many, especially lower-rated players. But, well, I'm doing my best to show that there is absolutely nothing to be scared of. First of all, if it's an endgame, if there are no queens on the board, basically, I normally consider it already to be an endgame. Of course, there could be exceptions, but just to make it simpler, let's say no queens on the board, that's an endgame. In the endgame, the castles, it's not that important. It loses its significance because there is no real danger for the king. That is why it's not a real problem. We are just playing back here king to e8, we protect that pawn, knight to f3 creates yet another attack. Here it's very important to remember the most important thing you always must focus in chess, namely, what's your opponent's idea. Whenever your opponent makes a move, you must completely forget about all of the ideas you might have had and think what he wants to achieve. He wants to play knight x5, but at the same time knight g5 and attack here. So I have to play bishop to d6. I have to defend that pawn on e5 so that after knight g5, I have rook f8 to defend it. If I would have played knight d7 instead, then I would have a problem because after knight g5 I don't have any reasonable way to defend that pawn. Anyway, he plays castles. I guess I have two options here. Normally you always want to play c6 and then b5, and with the c6 move you control both of those squares. But I can also play a6 and b5. Then bishop b6. Yeah, let's do that. Because when you play c6, you are kind of making this bishop on d6 weaker, which I really don't want. So I'm gonna play a6. But normally you do that and you're absolutely fine, because yeah, you can always play king to e7 and protect it. And c6 always helps because, yeah, knight d5 is not possible. There is one thing to be careful about. If you play c6 and they play rook d1, they attack here, and then king to e7 doesn't really help because of bishop takes f7. And then king takes, this bishop on d6 is hanging. But okay, it's too much into the detail. The most important thing is, as long as you have pretty much everything protected in your position, there is basically nothing bad can happen to it, because, well, everything is protected. And also focus on the development. Always the opening is the key. The development is the key to success in the opening. There might be exceptions if those are very useful moves for you. Otherwise, just never distract yourself from the main thing in the opening, which is the development. For example, here I played b5 just to create this b7 square for my bishop, because I want, when you want to develop your pieces, you want to find the most active squares for it. And b7 is the most active square for this bishop, therefore I played b5. Not just because I want to create a one-move threat here against the bishop on c4 and play so-called hope chess. No, that's absolutely not what I do and not what I want you to do. Knight g5 is a little bit unclear because the bishop is no longer there, so it doesn't create any real threats. Maybe he wants to play f4, but what are you gonna do if I just play h6? Do you just go back miserably, or do you go here? Maybe he is making a point that the bishop can no longer take it, and then after f4, the knight will come back into the game. But it's that's quite a weird idea, to be honest, because you waste so much time, and so many low-rated players are doing that. Okay, he actually just plays knight f3. Then it's even more weird than that, because he's just wasting 2 full tempi just to provoke this move h6. Yeah, I understand maybe that would have some point here, but I can just play g6. It's not that significant to waste two of your tempi. So please remember that time is the most important resource in chess. You never want to waste time. You always want to develop as many pieces as fast as possible. Okay, he actually stopped the move b4. Maybe I should have played it because the pawn is in. But I know that you normally don't need to be in a hurry to grab those pawns because it's going to open up the e-file, your king is here, something bad can happen. So don't be too fast to cash in opportunities like that and thinking like, okay, I'm going to grab some material immediately. No, you rather want to finish your development normally in most of the cases. Of course, sometimes it might happen that you have a very fantastic chance from the very beginning. Then, of course, yeah, it would be unreasonable not to use it. But okay, here I can already bring my rook to the D file, whereas my opponent haven't really developed any rooks yet, which gives me hope. Maybe I'm a little bit forgetting about this opportunity at knight h4, because now if I play g6, then really this pawn will be hanging. But okay, he plays that. Maybe he wants to go here. But once again, this knight is making like 1, 2, 3, 4 moves in one game. It's only move 15. You never want to do that. You always want to be reasonable in terms of your development, and the golden principle is one piece, one move. Well, I have to speed up a little bit, like the move c5, because now I'm kind of prepared for active actions. Knight x or bishop takes? I like knight takes, because if he takes, I'm gonna get a pair of bishops. Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And I am always happy to get a pair of bishops. To be honest, like this position is definitely better for black. And this was from that opening that so many players are afraid of the Philidor endgame, which I like to play because people don't know how to play it, and they get into such positions absolutely voluntarily. I mean, I'm not saying I'm gonna win it, it's still a long way, but just to get this one from the opening as black, it's a dream normally. So I don't have any complaints whatsoever. Now, what do we got? We have got two bishops. Why two bishops are great? Because they can control so many squares simultaneously on both sides of the board, which the knights are not capable of. That makes sense only if the position is opened, because if it's closed, then the bishops are not having those diagonals to be active, and then the knights are great because they can be flexible, they can operate in the closed position as well. Okay, finally he develops his rook. And also a second thing that I like, the pawn structure. His pawn structure is worse because he has 3 pawn islands. You can calculate the number of pawn islands to understand who has a better pawn structure. It's not like a 100% indicator that if he has 3 here, so pawn island means that there are no pawns on the adjacent files from here and from here. So this is one pawn island, this is second one, and here the 4 pawns are together. So this is the third island, whereas I have the same one here and one here because those pawns are connected. That means that my opponent has here isolated pawns, which in turn means that it's more difficult to defend it, and you need to basically do something about it. And also, this knight on c3 is not that stable. With the pawn on b2, it wouldn't be any problem at all. You can just ignore it. But now the knight is really under attack, and the problem for my opponent is that the e4 pawn is once again hanging. And now I'm much better prepared to take it because I wasn't in a hurry to cash in earlier in the game. Remember, I had this opportunity to play b4, but back then I haven't finished my development. Whereas now, absolutely every single one of my pieces is mobilized and ready to attack. And this is exactly what you should be aiming for in your own games. Don't just develop a few of them and go all in into the attack. No, instead just invite everybody to the party first and then see what you can do with that. Right now, I have already developed everything, whereas my opponents didn't. This is the key moment to do something active, because you have this advantage in terms of the development. Yeah, I don't see anything bad with taking the pawn on e4. You can take it, but I'm happy. Otherwise, the knight in the center is controlling everything. And also the move rook e1 is not really possible because bishop takes f2, winning the exchange there. So yeah, you never make such a move without thinking what your opponent can do. Maybe it's a trap. Maybe he has prepared something difficult for you. But as long as you follow the 4-step formula to understand the best move both for you and for your opponent, which includes checks, captures, threats, and active moves, should be good to go. My opponent doesn't really have any checks. He can only take here, but I was fine with it. And yeah, no real threats that I could have found. Okay, this is another mistake because yeah, checks, captures, and threats. I don't have any checks except for this. It's not a good thing for me. But the capture I can take here. he takes, and then once again checks, captures, and threads. It's important on every step of the process. I don't have any checks apart from this, which is stupid. I don't really have any reasonable captures here and here, stupid. But I do have a threat. I can attack that bishop. The bishop, first of all, has absolutely no moves to go, and even if it could move, there is a rook behind it, absolutely hanging. So that seems to be completely winning. And this is how you try to take advantage out of the opportunities you get in your own games. Let's see if our opponent has some hidden idea, but I don't think so. Why? Because I have all of my pieces developed. And normally that's like just the logic how chess works. If all of your pieces are mobilized and your opponent doesn't use an entire rook in his game, then it must mean that you should have an advantage. Because, for example, if the rook at least would be here, then this guy would be protected, and he wouldn't have such a problem of an unprotected piece. By the way, you always should have as little unprotected pieces as possible. Okay, our opponent just resigns here because there is absolutely nothing to do, he loses a piece, and we have won a game just like that. We haven't even done anything crazy. We have focused on the golden principles that I sincerely recommend you do, and that was enough to beat a 22-40 rated player. Let's take a look at the game review together to understand what went wrong in this game. 95% accuracy here. That is not a surprise for me, just because when you know your opponent, when you understand the ideas, not like the direct moves. I have seen the variation my opponent played here for the first time in my life, but because I knew the key ideas I should do, that wasn't a big challenge for me. So that is why I always say it's important to understand the openings you play, not just memorize all of the opening lines. And this is the key advantage of the 10-day opening mastery course that I have created for you, so that you can build a complete and holistic lifetime opening repertoire in just 10 days, both for white and black, absolutely everything you need. We focus on the practical stuff, not what is relevant for super grandmasters, the variations you're gonna never see in your games, but rather real stuff that is happening under 2000, so that you understand those ideas, how you can outplay opponents like that. Make sure to check the link in the description to find out more about the course, read the reviews from the participants of the course, and take a look yourself. There are free tutorials that help you to understand what you can expect from the course, and of course there is a 100% money back guarantee, 7 days. If you don't like the course, you can always take your money back, because yeah, I truly believe in this program. I have created it for you. I have spent more than a year to make it possible, so just enjoy. It's gonna change the way you play chess forever. As I said, the first mistake my opponent did in this game is knight to g5. Like, why on earth would you do it? It doesn't create any threats, you just waste time. Then the second mistake is b4. So like I said, you never push your side pawns without a very good reason to do that. I did it because it was needed for my development, but my opponent did it for unexplainable reason. It's just a weakness now. The knight is unprotected, and that was important later on. Yeah, here I have just got two bishops, very comfortable advantage here, almost +2, because also rook c8 coming, I'm fully mobilized, and there is basically nothing he can do here, and after e4, white resigns. I hope you got a lot of value from this video. If it's the case, in this video you're gonna learn how you can outplay your opponent from start to finish as white, being as active as possible.